Does someone want to buy your company? That's a good thing. But you shouldn't let the siren song of the one potentially perfect buyer prevent us from evaluating the whole field of opportunities. Today's video, we're going to walk through 4 reasons why that's the case, why the allure, if you will, of the unsolicited offer should not prevent you from pursuing a represented process. And so the first of these is going to be awareness. If the world doesn't know that your business is for sale, or that you may be interested in selling the business, or that you may be interested in taking on capital, then the world is very unlikely to reach out to you. Now, there may be a handful of parties that do reach out on an unsolicited basis, but there's an element of randomness when selling your business or seeking capital will work against you because it does not create an efficient market. Second is communication. So in some situations, you may say, well, all of the parties that would potentially be interested in us are already aware of us. That being said, the ability to communicate the business to those companies as to why they may want to acquire you, as to why they should have a maximum value when seeking to acquire you is important. Put a screenshot of a video we just made talking about the 3 reasons why companies are valued. And although most companies can discuss their numbers and what they've produced and relative to fundamentals, it's not always as crystallized a narrative relative to access, relative to capabilities. Who do you work for? Why is it special? Really narrowing in on the niche and the demographic and the end customer base, and again, really digging into the edge or the competitive advantage of the business. The next element is going to be literacy. If you run a business all day in a very specific field, you are likely going to understand how that field works, what all the relevant terms are in that field, and how the different participants look at it. That being, is this a good company? Is this a bad company? Is this a well-run business? Is this not a well-run business? And so when it pertains to the deal business, if it's not an area that you swim in all day, if it's not something that you're doing on a daily basis, then the issue is going to be that there's a literacy gap. There's going to be metrics people are talking about. There's going to be structural components people talk about. Would you know if the average purchase of your business should be 80% at closing and 20% over time, or 50% at closing and 50% over time? Would you know whether the right employment contract on a post-transaction basis or post-transaction transition for ownership should be 5 years, 3 years, 1 year? If they want 3 years and you want 1 year, what would be the basis for your negotiating point? And so that level of literacy in the transactional space, again, is its own environment, its own ecosystem, why it's important in its own ecosystem. And lastly, perhaps most intuitively, is competition. If 5 people want to buy a hot dog, I bet they'd pay a price for it. If 500 people wanted to buy a hot dog, I bet more people would pay for it. Think of artwork. No intrinsic value. It doesn't throw off cash flow. However, it's very valuable. Now, why is it very valuable? Because there's a lot of people that want it and only one person that has the particular painting. So you have scarcity, supply and demand. And so think of a business the same way. Although the old mantras or the old thoughts of the 1980s where cash was at a scarcity and there were plentiful opportunities, it's not the case anymore. At this juncture, there's tremendous amount of dry powder or cash on the sidelines from either private equity firms, family offices, strategics looking to acquire businesses, and there's far less actual good businesses and opportunities to deploy the capital to. It's not that there's a shortage of businesses that would be good, but those that would be receptive, those that would be open to being acquired or to receive capital. So creating a market, lining up the horses, getting everybody on the same page, maximizing demand for the finite supply of the thing can only push the price upward. Recapping the 4 reasons we discussed today of why you should have a represented process. First is going to be awareness, letting people know you exist and that it's an opportunity that you may contemplate. Second is communication. Can the narrative, can the story be communicated in a coherent way that maximizes value and that hits on all the value-driving variables? Next is literacy. When you actually start talking the nuts and bolts of a transaction, are you going to be at a competitive disadvantage or not? Lastly, is competition. The more eyeballs on something equals the more participants chasing after it equals the more valuable it becomes to the market. What is the goal of all of this? What does it all kind of summarize to? It's really the avoidance or the mitigation of randomness. The world of private company exits and capital is a wildly inefficient and fragmented one. There's no ticker symbols and market exchanges that you can look at how much things are trading for. It is truly a process of gathering adequate data points to make an intelligent decision. And what we find is if there's two firms that want to buy a company, price A and price B could be several deviations, 50% apart from one another. If there's 20 offers for the same company, you start to see where all of the data points consolidate, and it gives you a much better picture. And so really, it comes down to volume, encompassed by the variables we talked about today. In effort to remove the randomness, institute efficiency in an otherwise inefficient process, maximize price and terms. And whether you use Hillview Partners, our firm, or someone else, we would just suggest use representation. It's alluring, it's captivating to say there's one person who might be the best partner here. They're going to do all the wonderful things and we won't have to pay an intermediary. But trust me, from our experience, hundreds of transactions that we've seen, use representation when you're pursuing the exit or the capital securing of your business. And that's the thought for today. Hope the week's off to a good start. Keep pushing forward. God bless. See everyone next time.